The year was 2347, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Concord for exactly 50 years. When the first alien ship had appeared above Earth in 2297, the world had held its breath. People had wondered if this was the end or a new beginning. It turned out to be neither. It was simply a door opening to a much larger room. The Galactic Concord was old, very old. 4,000 civilizations had joined over millions of years. They had rules, traditions, and a very clear idea of how things worked. When humanity stepped through that door, the elder races looked at them the way a group of adults might look at a child wandering into an important meeting. Humans were small. Their lives were short. They came from a planet that the Concord scientists called a death world. Earth was full of predators, diseases, extreme weather, and natural disasters. The fact that humans had survived it all was considered a minor miracle. The fact that they had developed space travel was seen as a lucky accident. The Concord gave humanity one seat in the Great Assembly, one voice among 4,000. The message was clear. Humans were welcome, but they were not important, and humanity accepted this. They accepted it because they were tired. The older races did not understand this. They saw a young species that had just discovered faster-than-light travel. They saw primitive technology and small ships. They saw weakness. What they did not see was the weight that humanity carried. Humans had fought themselves for 10,000 years. They had invented the sword, the gun, the bomb, and weapons that could turn entire cities into ash in seconds. They had built empires on blood and bones. They had committed horrors against their own kind that would make even the most warlike alien species feel sick, and they were tired of it. When the United Terran Federation was formed to represent humanity among the stars, its founders made a promise. They would be different out here. They would not bring their violence to the galaxy. They would not repeat the mistakes of their past, so they held back. The first test came only 10 years after first contact. The Velthari Dominion, a reptilian species known for their aggressive expansion, decided they wanted 3 human colony worlds. These were small colonies on the edge of Terran space. Only about 50,000 people lived there. The Velthari simply took them. Their warships appeared in orbit. Their soldiers landed on the surface. They declared the planets to be Velthari territory now. The human colonists were told they could stay as guests or leave. Most left. Earth received the news and the military commanders prepared for war. The Terran defense fleet was small, but it was well trained. They believed they could take back the colonies, but the Federation Council said no. They filed a formal protest with the Galactic Concord. They requested mediation. They followed every proper channel and procedure. The Concord told them to accept the loss and move on. The Velthari were an established power. Humanity was new. This was how things worked, and humanity accepted it. The galaxy watched and learned. Humans were weak. Humans would not fight. Humans were easy prey. 20 years later, the Krethax hegemony decided to test this theory. They were an insectoid species that controlled major trade routes. They placed heavy sanctions on human merchant ships. Human traders had to pay 3 times as much to use the routes. Human goods became too expensive to sell. The Terran economy suffered. Millions of jobs were lost. People went hungry. The military commanders again prepared for action. The Krethax had only a small fleet. One quick strike could end the sanctions forever. But the Federation Council said no. They negotiated. They compromised. They agreed to pay the higher fees in exchange for small reductions over time. It would take 30 years for the sanctions to end completely, and humanity accepted it. The galaxy learned another lesson. Humans could be pushed. Humans could be squeezed. Humans would always choose words over weapons. Species that had once been curious about the newcomers now openly mocked them. At Concord gatherings, human ambassadors were ignored or insulted. The Silicari Collective, a species of crystalline beings, publicly called humans prey-minded weaklings who had somehow stumbled into the stars by accident. The human ambassador at that meeting simply smiled and changed the subject. But not everyone was smiling. Admiral Helena Vasquez had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 40 years. She had been a young officer during the Velthari incident. She had watched her government back down again and again. She had trained thousands of soldiers who had never seen combat because combat was never allowed. She understood the reasons. She had lived through the last great war on Earth before unification. She had seen what humans could do to each other. She did not want to unleash that on the galaxy. But she also saw what was happening. Every year, the other species pushed a little harder. Every year, humanity gave a little more ground. It was slow, but it was happening. The galaxy was learning that humans were safe to attack. One day, she was asked to speak at the Galactic Concord Assembly. It was a routine matter, something about trade agreements. But Admiral Vasquez saw an opportunity. She stood before the representatives of 4,000 civilizations. Most of them were not even paying attention. Humans were not interesting enough to listen to. She spoke calmly and clearly. "We are not a warlike people," she said. "We have chosen restraint. We have chosen diplomacy. We believe that problems can be solved with words instead of weapons." A few representatives looked up. This was unusual. Humans normally just agreed with whatever was proposed. But make no mistake, Admiral Vasquez continued. This is a choice, not a limitation. The chamber fell quiet. We have the capacity for violence that you cannot imagine. We have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of destruction. We have weapons, strategies, and soldiers that would make your worst nightmares look like children's stories. She paused. We choose not to use them. We choose peace. But do not ever confuse our choice for inability. Do not mistake our patience for weakness. Do not think that because we have not fought, we cannot fight. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. We are holding back. Remember that. Then she sat down. There was silence for a moment. Then someone laughed. The Silicari representative made a clicking sound that translated to amusement. Within seconds, half the chamber was laughing. The Velthari ambassador leaned over to his aide. Holding back, he repeated, his voice full of mockery. The prey thinks it has claws. The laughter spread. It echoed through the great chamber. It was shared across 1,000 worlds. Admiral Vasquez's speech became a joke, a famous example of human delusion. The galaxy had heard the warning. The galaxy had chosen to ignore it. Admiral Vasquez returned to Earth. She met with the other military commanders in a secure room deep beneath the Terran Defense Headquarters. They laughed, she told them. They will keep laughing until something makes them stop. General Marcus Stone nodded slowly. And when that day comes, Admiral Vasquez looked at the old soldier. Her eyes were hard. When that day comes, she said, we show them why they should have listened. The room was silent. Until then, she continued, we wait, we train, we build, and we pray that day never comes. But deep down, every person in that room knew the truth. It was not a matter of if, it was only a matter of when. The Zorath Imperium had been watching humanity for a long time. They were a predator species, 7 feet tall, covered in hard black armor that grew from their own bodies. They had 4 arms, each ending in claws that could cut through steel. Their faces were all sharp angles and mandibles, designed for tearing flesh. They had conquered 42 civilizations over the course of their history, and they had never lost a war. The Zorath did not understand diplomacy. They did not believe in trade or cooperation. In their view, the galaxy was simple. There were predators, and there was prey. The strong took what they wanted. The weak existed to be taken. When they first learned about humanity, they were confused. Here was a species that had somehow survived on a death world. They should have been strong. They should have been warriors. But instead, they begged and negotiated and filed paperwork. The Zorath Emperor, a massive creature named Karveth, discussed this mystery with his war council. They come from a world of fire and ice and poison, he said. They should be like us. Why are they so weak? His advisors had different theories. Perhaps the death world had made them afraid. Perhaps they had used up all their strength, just surviving. Perhaps they were simply a mistake of nature, a species that should never have reached the stars. But one advisor, an old warrior named Zethrak, had a different idea. Perhaps they are not weak, he said slowly. Perhaps they are hiding. The Emperor laughed. Hiding what? Their ships are small. Their weapons are primitive. They have shown us nothing but fear. Zethrak shook his head. A creature that survives a death world learns many things. One of those things is how to appear harmless, how to make predators look elsewhere. The Emperor considered this. Then he shrugged his massive shoulders. There is only one way to know for certain, he said. We will test them. We will push them hard enough that they must respond. And then we will see what they truly are. The Zorath began their expansion toward human space. They moved slowly at first, taking a few uninhabited systems that humanity had claimed but never settled. The Terran Federation protested through proper channels. The Zorath ignored them. Then they moved faster. They took systems with mining operations. Human workers were killed or driven away. Ships that tried to flee were destroyed. Still, humanity did not fight back. The Zorath Emperor grew confident. The old advisor had been wrong. Humans really were weak. They really were prey. He decided to prove it once and for all. New Helsinki was a farming colony on the edge of human space. It was a beautiful world with green fields and blue oceans. About 2.3 million people lived there, mostly families who wanted a quiet life away from the crowded cities of Earth. They grew food that was shipped to other colonies. They raised children. They lived in peace. The Zorath fleet arrived without warning. 50 warships appeared in orbit. They did not send any messages. They did not make any demands. They simply began landing troops. The colony had a small security force, a few hundred officers with basic weapons. They tried to organize a defense. They lasted less than 10 minutes. Then the killing began. The Zorath warriors moved through the cities and towns with terrible efficiency. They did not take prisoners. They did not ask questions. They simply killed everyone they found. Men, women, children, the elderly, the sick. It did not matter. The Zorath made no distinctions, and they recorded everything. Drones flew above the slaughter, capturing every moment. The footage was sent to every major network in the Galactic Concord. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds watched as the humans of New Helsinki died. The massacre lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Zorath commander stood atop a pile of human bodies. He was covered in blood. His mandibles clicked together in what passed for a Zorath smile. He spoke directly to the cameras. "Let this be a lesson," he announced to the galaxy. "The humans are cattle, and cattle exist to be slaughtered. Anyone who thinks otherwise should watch this footage and remember. This is what happens to the weak. This is what happens to prey." He laughed, a horrible sound like metal scraping against stone. "We have done the galaxy a favor today. We have shown everyone the truth. Humans are nothing. They are food. They are sport. They are entertainment for real warriors." The broadcast ended. The Galactic Concord held an emergency session. Representatives expressed deep concern and sincere sympathy for the loss of life. They passed a resolution condemning the attack. The Zorath ignored it. On Earth, the news arrived like a hammer blow. People gathered in the streets. They watched the footage on massive screens in public squares. They saw their brothers and sisters and children die. They heard the Zorath commander laugh, and something changed. For 50 years, humanity had held back. They had swallowed their pride. They had accepted insults and injuries and losses. They had told themselves that peace was worth any price. But this was different. This was not a trade dispute. This was not a stolen colony. This was 2.3 million innocent people slaughtered for entertainment. This was children murdered so that an alien warlord could make a point. The people of Earth looked at each other, and they remembered who they were. They were the descendants of warriors, the children of conquerors and survivors, the heirs of every bloody empire that had ever risen and fallen on their death world. They had buried their violent nature because they wanted to be better. But now, watching those images, they remembered the old truth. Sometimes, peace was not possible. Sometimes, the only answer to violence was greater violence. Sometimes, the only way to protect the innocent was to become the thing that monsters feared. Earth went silent. For 3 days, no human ship moved. No human diplomat spoke. Every channel, every frequency from Terran space fell completely quiet. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. It was as if humanity had simply stopped existing. Some species thought the humans were paralyzed by grief. Others thought they were planning to surrender completely. The Zorath thought they had broken humanity's spirit forever. They were all wrong. On the 4th day, a single transmission emerged from Earth. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every known language. Every species in the galaxy received it at the same time. It was Admiral Helena Vasquez. She was old now. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined with years. But her eyes burned with something that made even the bravest warriors feel a chill. She spoke slowly and clearly. 50 years ago, I warned you. I stood before your assembly and told you that humanity was holding back. I told you not to mistake our choice for weakness. Her voice was cold. There was no emotion in it at all. You laughed at me. You mocked us. You pushed and pushed because you thought we would never push back. She paused. I am speaking now to every species in the galaxy. To every leader, every warrior, every citizen. Listen carefully. What I say next will determine the future of this galaxy. The entire galaxy held its breath. We warned you, Admiral Vasquez said. For 50 years, we warned you. We told you we were holding back. We told you that our peace was a choice. We told you not to test us. Her eyes seemed to look directly at the Zorath Emperor. You did not listen. She stood a little straighter. 2,300,000 of our people are dead. Men, women, children. Murdered for sport. Murdered for entertainment. Murdered because you thought we were too weak to stop you. Her voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. We are not holding back any longer. The transmission ended, and the galaxy, for the first time in 50 years, began to feel afraid. The galaxy had always believed it knew everything about humanity. They knew humans had a small defense fleet, about 300 ships, mostly light cruisers and patrol vessels. They knew human weapons were slightly behind galactic standards. They knew human soldiers were brave but poorly equipped. This was what the records showed. This was what 50 years of observation had confirmed. All of it was a lie. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, Earth's moon, massive doors began to open. These doors had been sealed for 50 years. No alien spy had ever found them. No conquered inspector had ever suspected they existed. From the darkness below, lights began to appear. Hundreds of lights, then thousands. The Leviathan-class dreadnoughts rose from their underground bases. Each one was 12 kilometers long. Each one carried enough weapons to destroy a planet. Each one had been waiting, silent and patient, for this exact moment. There were 12 of them, but that was only the beginning. Across human space, similar scenes played out. On Mars, shipyards that had been disguised as mining facilities opened their doors. On Europa, beneath the ice, weapons platforms activated for the first time in decades. In the asteroid belt, what appeared to be abandoned stations suddenly came to life. The Terran Navy revealed itself. Not 300 ships. Not 3,000. 42,000 warships of every size and class. Battle cruisers, carriers, destroyers, frigates. Ships that could move faster than anything in the galaxy. Ships armed with weapons that no other species had ever imagined. For 50 years, humanity had been building. Every factory that officially made civilian goods had also made military equipment in secret. Every scientist who publicly worked on peaceful technology had privately worked on weapons. Every soldier who appeared to be part of a small defense force was actually one piece of the largest military machine the galaxy had ever seen. The Galactic Concord's intelligence services went into complete panic. How is this possible? Demanded the Velthari High Commander. We have watched them for 50 years. We have spies in their government. We have sensors monitoring their space. How did they hide this from us? The answer was simple. Humanity had learned from their own history. They had fought countless wars against each other. They had developed techniques for hiding armies, disguising weapons, and deceiving enemies. When they joined the galaxy, they simply applied those same techniques on a larger scale. They had shown the galaxy exactly what they wanted the galaxy to see, nothing more. On Mars, the war colleges reopened. These were schools that had officially been closed after humanity joined the Concord. Places where soldiers had once learned the art of warfare. Now, thousands of veterans returned. Men and women who had spent decades as farmers, teachers, doctors, and artists. They had lived peaceful lives. They had raised families. They had put away their uniforms, but they had never forgotten their training. Within days, the Terran military had mobilized more soldiers than the Zorath Imperium had in their entire armed forces. And these were not fresh recruits. These were experienced warriors who had trained their whole lives for a war they hoped would never come. General Marcus Stone, now in his 70s, took command of the ground forces. He had been the youngest general in Terran history during the last Earth War. He had retired to grow vegetables and play with his grandchildren. Now he stood before his officers in full combat armor. I know many of you thought your fighting days were over, he said. I thought so too. But the universe has other plans. Our people have been slaughtered. Our honor has been attacked. We have been called prey. His voice hardened. Let us remind them what predators really look like. But the ships and soldiers were only part of the awakening. Deep in a classified research facility, Dr. Yuki Tanaka prepared to address the Terran War Council. She was the lead scientist of the Prometheus Initiative, a secret program that had been running since before first contact. The War Council sat in a secure chamber. Admiral Vasquez, General Stone, the leaders of the Terran Federation. They had seen the fleet. They had seen the army. But Dr. Tanaka had something more to show them. When we joined the Concord, she began, we signed many treaties. We agreed not to develop certain types of weapons, planet killers, self-replicating war machines, things that could destroy entire civilizations. She paused. We signed those treaties. We never broke them. Officially, she touched a control panel, and a holographic display appeared. It showed a small device, about the size of a human fist. This is a Hawking bomb. It creates a temporary black hole at any designated location. The black hole exists for approximately 3 seconds. That is long enough to consume everything within a radius of 500 kilometers. The council members stared at the display. The Zorath homeworld has 17 billion inhabitants. 3 of these devices would end them as a species. Admiral Vasquez leaned forward. What else do you have? Dr. Tanaka pulled up another image. This one showed what looked like a cloud of silver dust. Replicator swarm. Microscopic machines that consume matter and use it to create more of themselves. Release them on a planet, and within 6 hours, there is nothing left but more machines. We have developed a kill switch that destroys them after their task is complete. Another image. This one showed a simple metal rod, relativistic kill vehicle. We accelerate it to 99% of the speed of light and aim it at a target. The kinetic energy is equivalent to the largest nuclear weapons ever built on Earth. There is no defense against it. There is no warning. One moment a city exists. The next moment it does not. She showed them more. Chemical weapons that could turn atmospheres toxic. Biological agents designed for specific alien species. Energy weapons that could destabilize stars. Things that humanity had invented during their long wars against each other, now adapted for use against the galaxy. We have spent our entire history learning how to kill each other, Dr. Tanaka said quietly. We are very good at it. We hoped we would never need these things. We built them and hid them away and prayed that they would rust and be forgotten. She looked at the council. But now someone has murdered 2 million of our children. So I ask you, what would you like me to prepare? Admiral Vasquez was silent for a long moment. The weight of the decision pressed down on her. She thought about New Helsinki. She thought about the families who had died. She thought about the Zorath commander laughing atop a pile of bodies. Prepare everything, she said. But we use them wisely. We are not monsters. We do not slaughter civilians for sport. General Stone nodded. We hit military targets. We destroy their ability to wage war. We make them surrender. And if they don't surrender? Asked one of the Federation leaders. Admiral Vasquez's eyes were hard. Then we show them what a death world species can really do. And we hope the galaxy learns from their example. The meeting ended. The preparations began. Across human space, weapons that had been sealed for generations were brought out of storage. Ships loaded ammunition that had never been tested in real combat. Soldiers checked equipment that they had been told they would never need. The news spread across the galaxy. Every species heard about the awakening. Every leader saw the footage of the massive Terran fleet. Every military commander tried to calculate how badly they had underestimated humanity. The Zorath Emperor received the reports and felt something unfamiliar. For the first time in his long life, he felt doubt. How many ships? He asked his advisors. Over 40,000 confirmed, one of them replied. But there may be more. We do not know what else they are hiding. The Emperor remembered the old advisor, Zethrak, who had suggested that humanity might be hiding something. He wished he had listened, but it was too late for regrets. The war was coming, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity stopped holding back. The Zorath never saw them coming. The ghost ships were humanity's most secret weapon. They were small vessels designed for one purpose: to move through space without being detected. No sensor in the galaxy could find them. No scanner could track them. They were invisible in every way that mattered. 300 ghost ships slipped into Zorath space on the first night of the war. They moved past patrol fleets. They avoided detection systems. They reached their targets without a single alarm being raised. At exactly midnight Earth time, they struck. 23 military installations across the Zorath Imperium went dark in the span of 4 minutes. Communication centers, sensor arrays, command posts, early warning systems, all of them destroyed before anyone knew an attack had begun. The Zorath Empire was suddenly blind and deaf. The Emperor received the news and could not understand it. How had the humans struck so deep into his territory? How had they destroyed so many targets so quickly? Where had they come from? Before he could find answers, the main fleet arrived. Admiral Chen Wei commanded the Terran vanguard. She was 60 years old and had spent her entire adult life preparing for a war she hoped would never happen. Now that it had come, she felt a strange sense of peace. No more waiting. No more holding back. Just the simple clarity of combat. Her fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zorath home system. 1,000 ships. The largest single force humanity had ever deployed in space. The Zorath had assembled their entire armada to meet them. 8,000 vessels. The full military might of a species that had never lost a war. They outnumbered the humans nearly 8-1. The Zorath commanders were confident. Numbers mattered. Strength mattered. These were the rules of warfare that had held true for millions of years. Admiral Chen Wei opened a channel to her fleet. "Remember New Helsinki?" she said simply. The battle began. In the first 30 seconds, 500 Zorath ships were destroyed. Human weapons moved faster than Zorath sensors could track. Beams of energy that crossed thousands of kilometers in an instant. Missiles that changed direction so quickly they seemed to teleport. Weapons that the Zorath had no names for because nothing like them had ever existed before. The Zorath tried to fight back. They fired their own weapons at the human ships. Most of them missed. The human vessels moved with impossible speed, dodging attacks that should have been unavoidable. The ones that hit seemed to do no damage. Human shields absorbed energy that would have destroyed any other ship in the galaxy. The Zorath commanders tried to coordinate their forces. They sent orders to their ships. They attempted to regroup and focus their fire, but their communications were jammed. Every frequency was filled with static. They could not talk to each other. They could not organize. Each ship fought alone against an enemy that moved as one. The human tactical computers were connected through quantum links. Every ship knew what every other ship was doing. They shared information at the speed of light. A single artificial intelligence coordinated all 1,000 vessels, making decisions thousands of times faster than any living commander could. To the Zorath, it seemed like they were fighting ghosts. Human ships appeared out of nowhere, fired devastating weapons, and vanished before any response was possible. Groups of human vessels worked together with perfect timing, setting traps that the Zorath walked into again and again. The battle had been going for 3 minutes. The Zorath had lost 2,000 ships. The humans had lost 4. The Zorath flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Hunger, tried to break through the human lines. It was the personal ship of the Emperor's eldest son, Commander Karveth the Younger. He had inherited his father's arrogance and none of his wisdom. "Ram them," he ordered. "Close the distance and use our boarding troops. We will tear them apart with our claws." The Eternal Hunger accelerated toward the nearest human cruiser. It was a ship called the New Helsinki, named for the colony that had been destroyed. Its captain was a woman named Sarah Chen, who had lost her sister in the massacre. She watched the massive Zorath flagship approaching. In the old rules of space combat, this would have been a dangerous moment. The Zorath ship was 10 times the size of hers. Its boarding troops were legendary, but the old rules did not apply anymore. "Target confirmed," said her weapons officer. Weapon charged and ready. Captain Chen thought about her sister, about the children who had died, about the Zorath commander laughing. "Fire," she said. The weapon had no official name. The scientists who built it had called it a quantum disruptor. It did not destroy matter. It simply disconnected it. Every atom in the target area suddenly stopped interacting with every other atom. The Eternal Hunger was there. Then it was not. No explosion. No debris. No radiation. Just empty space where a kilometer-long warship had been a moment before. Commander Karveth the Younger died so quickly that he never knew what happened. One moment he was screaming orders. The next moment he simply ceased to exist. The Zorath fleet saw their flagship vanish and began to panic. Some tried to flee. Some tried to surrender. Some kept fighting out of pure instinct. It made no difference. The battle lasted 11 minutes in total. When it was over, the Zorath armada had been completely destroyed. 8,000 ships reduced to nothing. Millions of Zorath warriors dead. The human fleet had lost 19 ships. Admiral Chen Wei broadcast a message to the Zorath homeworld. Your fleet is gone. Your emperor's son is dead. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will begin destroying your military installations one by one until you change your mind." She paused. "You wanted to see what humans do to their enemies. Now you know." The emperor received the message in his throne room. His advisors were silent. His guards were trembling. The being who had conquered 42 civilizations and never known fear was finally learning what it felt like. "How?" he whispered. "How did they do this?" Old Zethrak, the advisor who had warned him years ago, stepped forward. "They came from a death world, my emperor. They spent 10,000 years learning to kill each other. They survived predators, plagues, ice ages, and their own weapons of mass destruction. And then they came to the stars and we taught them that the galaxy was just as dangerous as their home." He bowed his head. "We should have listened when they told us they were holding back." The emperor looked at the images of his destroyed fleet. He thought about his dead son. He thought about the billions of Zorath who would die if the humans decided to use their worst weapons. "Contact them," he said quietly. "Tell them we surrender." The war had lasted less than a day. News of the Zorath defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light could travel. Every species heard about it. Every leader saw the footage of the battle. Every military commander watched in horror as the most feared fighting force in the known galaxy was destroyed in 11 minutes. The responses came quickly. The Velthari Dominion immediately returned the 3 human colony worlds they had taken 50 years ago. They also offered financial compensation, formal apologies, and a friendship treaty that included major trade concessions. The Krethak's hegemony dissolved their sanctions on human trade routes. They offered to pay back every credit they had charged human merchants over the past 3 decades. The Silicari Collective, who had called humans prey-minded weaklings, sent an ambassador to Earth. The ambassador knelt before the Terran Federation Council and begged forgiveness for the insult. 17 other civilizations that had mocked or threatened humanity over the years sent their own diplomatic missions. All of them carried the same message: "We are sorry. We were wrong. Please do not destroy us." But humanity was not finished. The Zorath had surrendered. But surrender was not enough. 2,300,000 people had died on New Helsinki. Someone had to answer for that, and humanity intended to collect. The Galactic Concord Assembly had never been so quiet. 4,000 representatives sat in the Great Chamber. Species that had ruled empires for millions of years. Civilizations that had watched stars be born and die. Beings who had thought themselves masters of the galaxy. Now they waited in silence for a human to speak. Ambassador James Okonkwo walked slowly to the center podium. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes that had turned hard over the past months. He had spent his career believing in diplomacy. He had thought that words could solve any problem. New Helsinki had taught him otherwise. He looked around the chamber. He saw fear in every face, every eye, every sensor. The galaxy was afraid of humanity now, as they should be. "For 50 years, he began. We tried to show you a different way." His voice was calm, almost sad. "We believed that strength did not require cruelty. We believed that power did not require violence. We thought that if we showed you restraint, if we demonstrated that we could be peaceful, you might learn, you might grow, you might become better than you were." He shook his head slowly. "We were naive." The holographic displays around the chamber lit up. Images appeared. Human history, the trenches of ancient wars, cities reduced to ash by nuclear fire, mass graves, concentration camps, 10,000 years of humanity's violence against itself. The representatives watched in horror. They had known humans were violent. They had not understood the scale. "We are the children of a death world," Ambassador Okonkwo continued. "We evolved surrounded by predators, parasites, and poisons. Every day was a fight for survival. Every night brought new dangers. The weak died, the strong survived. And we became very, very strong." New images appeared. Ice ages that covered entire continents. Volcanic eruptions that darkened skies for years. Asteroid impacts that killed most life on the planet. We survived things that would have destroyed other species. We survived because we were too stubborn to die. Because we refused to give up. Because we looked at impossible odds and said, "We will find a way." More images. Ancient humans hunting creatures 10 times their size. Early civilizations building monuments that stood for thousands of years. scientists unlocking the secrets of the atom, and when we ran out of external threats, we turned on ourselves. We fought wars that lasted decades. We invented weapons that could end civilizations. We practiced the art of destruction until no other species in the galaxy could match us. His voice dropped, and then we stopped. The images changed. Peaceful scenes now. Humans working together to rebuild after wars. Treaties being signed. Nations that had been enemies becoming friends. We looked at what we had done and we felt shame. We saw the blood on our hands and we swore to wash it off. When we reached the stars, we made a promise. We would be different out here. We would be better. Ambassador Okonkwo looked around the chamber. For 50 years, we kept that promise. We endured your insults. We accepted your abuse. We let you take our colonies and cheat our merchants and mock our ambassadors. We did this because we wanted peace, because we believed that eventually you would see us as partners instead of prey. His eyes hardened. But you would not let us be peaceful. The image of New Helsinki appeared. The burning cities, the bodies, the Zorath commander laughing, 2,300,000 of our people, men, women, children, murdered because you thought we were too weak to stop you, slaughtered because you believed we would file another protest and move on. He let the silence stretch. We are done moving on. A new display appeared. The Terran Charter, humanity's new doctrine for dealing with the galaxy. Here is what happens now. The Zorath Imperium will be dismantled. Their government will be replaced. Their military will be destroyed. The 42 species they conquered will be freed. War criminals will face justice. The commander who led the attack on New Helsinki has already been executed. A stir went through the chamber. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably. And the Zorath are only the beginning. Ambassador Okonkwo pulled up a list of names. Species that had committed atrocities over the centuries. Civilizations that had preyed on the weak. Empires built on slavery and conquest. The Galactic Concord has watched these crimes happen for millions of years. You have passed resolutions. You have expressed concern. You have done nothing. He closed the display. That changes today. A Silicari representative raised a trembling appendage. You cannot simply impose your will on the galaxy. The Concord has rules, procedures. You cannot. Cannot? Ambassador Okonkwo smiled. It was not a friendly expression. You spent 50 years testing our limits. You pushed and pushed because you were certain we would never push back. He leaned forward. You discovered we do not have limits. Not anymore. The Silicari fell silent. So let me be absolutely clear. The humans are done asking permission. We are done filing protests. We are done with your Concord's toothless resolutions and meaningless sanctions. He straightened his uniform. We tried peace. We begged you to let us be gentle. We warned you again and again that we were holding back. You refused to listen. His voice dropped. So now you get the other humans. The ones we tried so hard to leave behind. The conquerors, the destroyers, the monsters that built empires on bones and blood. He turned to leave, then paused at the chamber doors. For 50 years, I believed that diplomacy was the answer. I believed that words could change minds. I believed that peace was possible. He looked back at the assembly. I was wrong. Some lessons can only be taught with fire. He walked toward the exit. We warned you, he said quietly. We warned you we were holding back. The doors slid open. We are not holding back anymore. The doors closed behind him. The chamber remained silent for a long time. 1 year later, the galaxy had changed. The Terran Protectorate now encompassed over 200 worlds, not through conquest, but through desperate requests for membership. Species that had once laughed at humanity now begged for their protection. The predator civilizations that had terrorized the weak for millions of years suddenly found themselves facing something worse than they had ever imagined. A species that had spent 10,000 years learning every possible way to kill. Most of them chose to reform. They released their slaves. They dismantled their weapons. They signed treaties promising to respect the rights of weaker species. They did this because the alternative was facing the Terran fleet. Some did not reform. They tried to fight. They tried to hide. They tried to run. None of them succeeded. On Earth, there were debates. Some people argued that humanity had become the very thing they had tried to escape. They had sworn to leave violence behind. Now they were the most feared military power in the galaxy. Others countered that the galaxy had forced their hand. That sometimes, The only way to protect the innocent was to become the monster that other monsters feared. That true peace required the strength to enforce it. Admiral Helena Vasquez, now very old, gave one final address before her death. She stood before an assembly of officers, politicians, and ordinary citizens. Her voice was weak, but her words were clear. "We did not want this," she said. "We came to the stars with hope in our hearts. We wanted to be explorers, scientists, artists. We wanted to leave the blood behind." She looked out at the crowd. But the universe had other plans. And when the universe pushes humanity, humanity pushes back. She raised her glass. "To the next generation. May you find a way to be better than we had to be. May the peace we have bought with blood last long enough that our children forget how to make war." She drank. "But if they cannot," she smiled, and for a moment, the old fire returned to her eyes. "May they be as terrifying as their ancestors." She passed away 3 days later. She was buried on New Helsinki, beside a memorial to the 2.3 million who had died. Her gravestone carried a simple message. She warned them. They did not listen. The galaxy remembered that warning now. They remembered what happened when humanity stopped holding back, and they never forgot again.